Hopefully that's not any too much feedback, but welcome to the next Power BI user group. We're really excited to have you guys here. Hopefully today we can go through a lot, and we're so excited to have Gil here today. Let's kind of start and kind of dive into our agenda for today. So really the first thing is thanks for joining. We're really excited for the attendance that we have here. So really the biggest things is we're going to go through some updates in Power BI. We're going to talk about really just what we're planning for this user group for the next few months. And then finally, we're going to go through and kind of focus on what Gil has to provide. So again, we're really excited for what Gil has to offer today. So for future meetups, we're going to be online for the foreseeable future. We're again, really we're working with seeing how everything's going in general, and we're going to really just keep doing Microsoft Teams. Hopefully you guys enjoy it, and we'll keep on doing it. So some updates with Power BI, and we're going to be brief with this, is we're going to talk about some of the new things that Power BI updated since March. They haven't had an update for April. They're planning to release the next desktop version in May 6th. But we're going to go through some of those new things that they added and really awesome features. So the first thing that we really want to focus on is the new action types for buttons. And a lot of times we get users who have difficulty knowing that a drill through is available. So what we're going to actually see is you can actually choose something, select it, and actually go use the buttons as a drill through rather than having a user to right click. So let's show what that looks like, and I'm going to just share my screen. And we'll do screen 2. So you'll see, if you see my desktop here, you'll notice that we have kind of normal visuals here, normal buttons, and we're looking at home runs by team. Usually if I wanted to do a drill through, I'd have to right click and go through the drill through icon. But what they just updated and released is the ability to actually choose a team. And you'll notice that this button here highlights when selected, and you can create a DAX measure to basically say selected text. And I'll show exactly what that looks like here with the visual. The button text is actually a function that we created, drill team. You can actually see it's basically just showing me if the team is filtered, click to see details for the selected value, or select a team to drill. So all I have to do here is now just click on this button, and I'm actually brought to a page that's drilled through for what I selected. And again, it will carry everything over as well. Another thing that Power BI also included was dual axis line charts. And this was one of the biggest things that we knew from that I know was one of the hurdles in terms of trying to visualize dual axis lines. Usually it was a combo chart, but now you can actually set up the values here and to show, and what we're looking at is by year, the wins and also the average home attendance. And again, we're looking at just the Yankees. So we can see going to the Y, I can show here, basically do the same items here that I would normally do, looking at all the way to basically the secondary and format them any way that I need to. So a really awesome feature, and it's enabled by default. So we're really excited to have that included. So let's kind of talk about one of the big things that are coming up. They're called personalized visuals. And this is one of the really neat things that we're excited to show, is allowing you to actually change the visual on the canvas itself, and then finally conditional formatting for total. So let's show this. So you'll notice here, and I'm in the author mode, and this will be probably released I think later in the month, I'm assuming, but you can see there's this little icon here that actually says this visual can be personalized by report readers. So all I have to do here is just click on here, or it's in the service, and you basically have the ability to change the visual type any way you see fit. Another wonderful feature coming, just like in PowerPoint, if you need to select multiple visuals on the page, rather than holding Control click, just like PowerPoint, I can now do the lasso selection. And you'll see it'll actually select the visuals that I need to here. So let's try this again. And I think you have to get all the visual in there. So being able to select both these visuals is a really phenomenal feature. So a quick update on conferences that the Power Platform user group community is putting on. The first is in 2 weeks, the virtual Power Platform World Tour, the first virtual one they hosted. It was going to be in New York originally, but you can still register for this virtual tour, conference online. 2 phenomenal days with amazing speakers, and I'm sure we've all seen how well virtual, I'm sure you've done the meetings, webinars, or sessions, and they're probably going to be doing this for the foreseeable future. And just like that, currently still planned to be downtown Chicago, June 16th and 17th, is the Chicago Platform World Tour. I'm assuming it's going to be converted to virtual, but as of right now, it's still planned to be at the Embassy Suites on June 16th and 17th. So really that leads me to, let's talk about Gil. Gil, we're so excited to have Gil here today, what he's going to be able to provide. He's a phenomenal speaker, author, and if you have not seen his blog, datachant.com, it will warp your mind. It's something that you have to do probably with a drink, to just read him multiple times. Gil's done amazing jobs for the community and the industry. We're so excited to have him talking. And really with that, I'm going to hand it over to Gil. I'll let him share his screen, and really I'll let him drive the rest of the meeting.
Thank you so much, Tommy. Sharing my screen now. Hi, guys. Let me know if you see my screen. Do you see my screen? Tommy, can you hear me?
You can see your screen. We can see.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So hello, everybody. I'm really happy to be here today with you. We are going to we have a lot of time, so till around 7:50. We are going through a series of steps, a walkthrough that will help you to build your own COVID-19 Power BI dashboard. We'll go step by step. I'll try to be relatively very slow, so you are welcome to try to go with me through the steps. If you have 2 screens, you have a good opportunity, a good chance to do that. With 1 screen, you may be a bit with a challenge to flip between your Power BI desktop and me. So I prefer that you look at me today if you have only 1 screen. And since this session is going to be recorded, you'll be able to follow everything, okay? So again, as Tommy presented myself, I just wanted to let you know I'm based out of Chicago. I live in Island Park. We are working probably very close to each other on the day-to-day basis. So I really plan to be in person today. Unfortunately, all of us are working from home. So we are at least taking advantage of this situation to expand knowledge in Power BI on our spare time, as we don't need to travel any longer. So perhaps this is a kind of interesting opportunity for growth. I also wanted to mention Avanade. I'm part of Avanade. We do digital transformations on anything which is Microsoft. For me, in special, I am responsible for large-scale deployments of Power BI globally for the company, and it's really fun and exciting for me to have this opportunity to work with so many different clients across the globe in whether it's self-service analytics and establishing center of excellence, or migrating hundreds of reports from Solution X to Power BI. So things are becoming really exciting in the Power BI domain for large enterprises. So it's really cool to be in this company. And after this kind of introduction, let's start with the fun. Okay, so our starting point, and let me just close all my PowerPoints. So just to give you a kind of a motivation for our session today, you can see here in my screen, this is the Power BI report that I built for this session. We are not going to do everything to finish this one. It took me several days to complete, but we will go through the basic operations to start building the capabilities that you see in this report. To help you a bit, if you will go to datachant.com, okay, let me share with you a few links. So you can see on the first article that you have today, you have here an article that discusses a template app that I published on AppSource. So if you will just click here on this link, download it here. Let me copy paste this link to you. Okay, so just 1 second, I will go to the chat. And here I'm going to, this is the link to COVID-19 app on AppSource. So now use this link and install the report that we are now starting to build together in this session. You can already install it on your Power BI tenant, play with it, edit it. The only limitation is that you cannot download the PBAX file, but you can connect live to the dataset to build also your own reports. The report is refreshable. There is now a specific bug that Microsoft are investigating. For some strange reason, the report is not refreshing when you install it as an app. So today, when you install it, you will not get the latest data, and we are working on a solution for that. But what you'll see today is how you can build also your own report. So this is just a kind of a teaser of what you can do, how you can get this specific dashboard and customize it as well. And once Microsoft will release a bug fix here, we will have this one also refreshable. Okay, so basically to start building our own Power BI COVID-19 report, the starting point should be the data source, right? For that reason, we are going to start our first part of the tutorial is going to be on the data acquisition, data preparation part, bringing reliable data for COVID-19 confirmed cases and death cases from the internet, but we need it to be reliable, right? So the steps that you are going to see today are based on a tutorial that I already published on the web. Let me share with you the link as well. So this is the link for what we are going to do today. We will have some variations, but if you will just later want to do step by step, you will be able to do it from this tutorial here, okay? So the second link that I'm now sharing with you is a tutorial step by step for what we are going to do today live. Okay, so starting point for us is to look for resources that have COVID-19 cases. If I will check COVID-19 on Google, and just to make things a bit, actually let's COVID-19 dataset. So you see we have many different sources for COVID-19. The one in particular that I think is the most valuable, at least for our case, is actually on GitHub. So I will check GitHub, and you're going to see this is. Let me also share the link with you as well. So please go and open on your browser the link that I just shared with you. So this is a data set that was published by Johns Hopkins. They did something really remarkable. Unfortunately, not in Power BI, but just if you will search also in Google for COVID-19 dashboard, you will find their Johns Hopkins Coronavirus Resource Center. So clicking here on this element will open up a really nice dashboard that Johns Hopkins published, and you can use that also for testing purposes. Once you build your Power BI solution, you can take a look on this report, compare the results to see that everything is working as expected. So really this dashboard is the one that raised my attention, and as I checked what the data sources they are using, I landed into this data source that they also monitor and own. Okay, just as a kind of a disclaimer here, you can also see the terms of use, whether you can use it as for commercial purposes or not. I think for commercial purposes, okay, is not allowed. Okay, so we are doing that only for educational purposes. I'm not selling you any dashboard here, and you're not selling that also in your own organization. Really recommend that you will make sure that when you use this, you'll use it only for educational purposes. We can have a session, and we can try to be more flexible in the second session to see where to focus. I can also show you how to bypass this limitation by going directly against the sources. So you can see here Johns Hopkins are getting data from different sources, the top most legitimate ones. So this is not fake news. We have the World Health Organization, we have CDC, and other sources that are very legitimate. So this is really a good data source to use. Okay, so now while Power BI, if I'll show you here, when I click Get Data, just 1 second, let's click on the Get Data. You will see that we do have here a Github connector, which is on beta. Because it's on beta, I didn't even try to use it. So in my mind, it's a beta. I prefer to go through the raw data that we have. We are not going to do any web scraping on this website to get the data. Luckily for us, you can see if I will go into the CSS COVID-19 data, you can see here that I have another folder called time series. Okay, let me also paste this URL so you will have it as well. Okay. So the third link that I shared with you will allow you to get to this folder. And from here, we are going to actually start making the import for our report. Okay, well, let's start. I think for today, let's do it a bit different than the tutorial that I have. In the tutorial, I'm explaining how to take the CSVs for the global cases, but now since we are in Chicago, perhaps we will have some interesting insights to drill down to Chicago itself and Illinois. So I guess for today, I will just go through the US confirmed cases and the US death cases, which has information, if I remember correctly, till the level of the county. It's not if I remember correctly, I can say for sure, guaranteed. To give you some motivation for what we are going to do, you can see in my report, if I'm going using the bookmark and I will go to the actual states, now I can, after I'm on a specific state, I can search, for example, for Illinois. So this is Illinois. Okay. You see, I also have a nice tooltip when I hover on Illinois. And here I have the actual counties in Illinois. And I can click here on this drill through button. Let's click here. And now I can start analyzing the actual cases in Illinois. So we see Cook County as 1,496 new cases today. It's probably not today, it's from 2 days ago, but just to show you, if I click refresh, the data will be loaded. We will have data hopefully from yesterday. So you'll see here, the data is now for April 29th, yesterday, and Cook County is still the highest. So what we are going to do today, we are going to load the same data that we need that I used for this report, and we'll do it step by step. And the two sources that we are going to use are the confirmed US CSV file and the death US CSV file. Okay, so these are the two files that we are going to use. Ready to start? Yeah, say yeah. You cannot say anything. Okay, sorry guys that you cannot say anything. I wish we could be in person in downtown Chicago. So starting point, we have this CSV file. I'm clicking here on this link, and you see this is the CSV file. And now just probably if I will just try to take it from here, I suspect that I will have the response as an HTML page. So just to play safe, I clicked here on the row tab, and now I have the actual URL. Okay, so I will copy this URL, and let's open a new Power BI desktop. This one will take a bit time. Hopefully, Power BI desktop is a bit slow on my side. Let me also, just to make things a bit easier, I'm going to disconnect the video, so the work will be faster. And now what you can see, so I'm clicking get data, and in the Power Query get data dialog box, I'm going to select web. So web is under the other section, the first element. And in the from web dialog box, I'm going to paste the CSV file for the US confirmed cases and click OK. Okay, now for any beginners in Power BI, something that I really hate that is by design, and this is something that probably lead also to for many users not to be aware of the transformation capabilities that they have in Power BI, and this is here in this section where you have by default you have load. So when basic users, new users in Power BI are loading data from SQL, are loading data from Excel, from CSV files, no matter what they do, when you have a basic experience, the default experience where I click enter and I just load the data in a format that is very challenging, right? Just you see column 1, column 2, etc., right? So in many cases, basic users will be lucky and the data that they will have will be much cleaner than this. So they will just keep working with Power BI, probably for several weeks or even months, and realizing that they have an amazing opportunity on their disposal to use the data transformations, data shaping capabilities in Power BI, and truly to become magicians in data wrangling. So really, for me, it's a pain that the default is not transform data. But so I'm clicking now on the transform again, just to show you. Whenever you, let's say, if we have anybody in the audience that is watching the session now, and you never worked with Power Query before, and you already have your own Power BI reports, but every time that you need to make a change in the data, you call IT to fix something on the SQL Server schema. It's opportunity for you now. Open your Power BI reports, click on the transform data, and this one will open the Power Query editor, which will allow you to start shaping the data to meet your needs. Okay, so while today I'm not going to explain Power Query in all the details, we are going we have a solution in mind. We want to bring the COVID-19 data into the report and start building the analysis. Capabilities for the report, I will try to mix between very basic explanations to some moderate ones to accommodate both the beginners and the intermediate users that we may have in this session. Okay. Actually, let's try to do on the session here. Let me see if this is going to work. So I'm going to ask a question here. Raise. Let's see. Click the like button if you know Power Query. Okay, so I just posted a question, and let's just count how many likes we have. So if you see on the live event Q&A, you have a like button. If you can just click there, let's see the numbers running. Okay. Do you see that? Nobody knows what is Power Query? Okay, 1 person, 3, 5, 6, 7. Okay, 8. Nice. We are now above third of the population. Okay, 11. Let's see how many don't know what is Power Query. Never used it. How many never used Power Query? Okay, so now you know it's anonymous. I cannot know who is knowing, who is not knowing, but feel free now. If it's completely new to you, click the like button on my last question. How many never used Power Query? Okay, so everybody used Power Query in the audience. This is really great, fantastic. So we'll be a bit faster here. Okay, how many of you know M, the M language, the M formula language of Power Query? Just click the like if you know M, even a bit. Like you did some lightweight modification to the formula bar of Power Query. Just click the like. Okay, nobody brave enough to click the like button to know M, formula bar in Power Query editor, which is fine. Just that will be a good introduction to the capabilities. Okay, so I see we have more than 50% of our team today. You know Power Query, you used it. Nobody is clicking on the like button for M, so M is something that is more new to you. Perfect. Thank you guys for the engagement and clicking the like. This is really helpful. Okay, so back to our report. Again, I was in the Power Query, sorry, on the Power BI desktop. I loaded the data in a way that doesn't help me in any way, right? Like if you want to start building things this way, you Yeah, I prefer to run away and catch a COVID-19 than trying to do that, or perhaps not. So clicking on the transform data, and now let's click here on the refresh, and now you can see, so we have, this is the Power Query editor, our place to start shaping our data. So as a starting point, let's call this table confirmed for the confirmed cases, just a simple, a better table name. And we see that we don't, like, actually, we don't really have, we would like to promote the first row to be our headers, right? So as a starting point, I'm going, you see I have here on the right side 2 steps. The second step is really pointless, I can just delete it. This step, even if you don't understand why we have it, you can see, so if you, this is the first time for you, that you use Power Query, you will not see here anything between the table, the preview, and the ribbon. I recommend for everyone who is seeing this session live or later when it's recorded, please go to the View tab and check the formula bar, so you will now see the actual formula. This can be very helpful down the road. When I ask you if you know M, so this is a line of the M code. We are not going to teach you the syntax today. And the good news for you is that you don't really need to learn the syntax in order to be very successful with Power Query. But knowing that this language exists and being able to do lightweight manipulations on this text can really help you probably to achieve close to 85% of any problem in data that needs to have a proper data shaping. Okay, so as first step for us, I'm just deleting the change type step here, just because we don't need it. You can see that this step is just converting all the columns into different types. And since we have a lot of the columns that we have are numbers, we don't need to do that on the level of the column 1, column 2, column 3, but on the actual names of the columns. At this stage, I'm deleting this step, so I'm clicking on the X button. Okay, so now I'm going to the home ribbon, and I would like to promote the first row as headers. So here I have under, this is actually under the transform tab. I'm going to the transform tab, and you are going to see in the transform tab, use first row as headers. Now in Power Query, everything is contextual. So in many cases, if you want to do something on the level of the entire table, you can click here on the little table icon, and you will find here many interesting things that you can do on this table. So for example, what we would like to do is to use first row as headers, which we also have in the transform tab. In Power Query, like anything which is Microsoft, you can do the same thing in many different ways, which is good because it is more discoverable and allows you to do things in a way that is more contextual to your business objectives. In our case, we are clicking here on the use first row as headers, and now you see we have the relevant information now as header names. Now, since we are now loading data for all the different states and counties in US, I would like to remove some columns that we don't need for the analysis. So these 5 columns are not necessary. I'm going to remove them. So I'm selecting using the control those columns and then right click. Now, by the way, just as you see, after we did the promote, I have here another large instructions of changing the types. You can see again, even without being an advanced user, you can take a note here that all this information that you see here may be in the future challenging. And just to give you an example, what are we going to have tomorrow when the data will stop? Let's say now we have data till April 22nd. What happens tomorrow, perhaps, when Johns Hopkins will release another column? We are not going to convert it. So pretty much all this step is not very scalable. So for now, I'm going to just delete it as well. I want my queries to be very, very clean, lean and mean. Okay, so in the third step, we just removed the first 5 columns. And now you see we have here, in admin 2, we actually have the county names. So I'm going to keep this one. So double clicking on admin 2 on the header, and I'm going to name this column county. So we have province, state, and we have county. And we have, of course, country region, which is everything here is US. You see, I'm using the filter control to explore the data a bit. So everything here is US. We can also remove this column. Let's actually go to the third step and click the remove from here, just because I want to have all the remove of the columns on the same step, but it's not really mandatory. Okay, so now back to the rename column. You see that we have the county, province, state. We can also, let's also go back and remove the latitude and longitude. And we can also remove the combined key. Okay, so now we have everything that we need for this analysis. Next, what we are going to do is just again, if you are working with reports and you have columns in your reports that are of the same type, and this situation is a bit more exaggerated, like you would probably not have a report with so many columns, right? But sometimes I see a lot of situations for Power BI developers that are not familiar with Power Query, and you will start to see like a lot of columns of the same format, like different years or different departments, but the amounts will be the same. And this is not a good way to load this data to the report, right? Just to be a bit ridiculous, right? I am clicking close and apply, and let's just load this report. And you'll see that while now the column names are much more meaningful than earlier, but it doesn't make sense to build analysis now on this report, right? You may start building some calculations. If I will start using the checkbox to show data, yeah, this will give you some results. You can build some reports with these capabilities, but this is really not the way to build any report, any BI solution. So again, back to the drawing board, clicking transform data to enter back into Power Query. And what we actually want to do is do something like that. In purpose, I didn't explain. Some of you may already know that. For those that doesn't know that, when I saw it for the first time by somebody, I thought this is magic. It took me 10 minutes to understand what the heck happened here. But in a nutshell, let me just do it again now, this time very, very slow. Okay, so actually county. So I forgot, sorry. This is county and this is the state. State and county. I deleted the previous step by mistake. So what I did is I selected the 2 columns that I want to use in the new table. And I'm going now to tell Power Query, Power BI, everything else except these 2 columns is of the same value, the same type. I have here confirmed cases by the different dates. Each column is a different day. And I would like now to convert this column, to unpivot this column in a way that I will just have for each combination of the selected columns, which is state and county, I would like to have an attribute and a value. The attribute is going to be the header name, which is the date, and the value is going to be the actual numbers that we have here till the end, and these are the confirmed cases. So right click after I use control to select the two columns and selecting unpivot other columns. And now you see I have now for all the combinations of county and states, we have by the date, we have the actual confirmed cases. So now as I have this solution, I can double click here and change this into date and the value into confirmed case. So we have date, we have confirmed, and now all we need to do is just go here, change the type of date into a date. Remember earlier Power BI, just here when we just loaded everything, by default, Power BI created a step to change everything into text, which was really pointless. And now after we did this transformation and we only have two columns, it's really easy to do it manually. So we change here by clicking on this icon, we can change the format, the type of this column, we change it into date. And this one for confirmed cases is going to be a whole number. Okay, so now we have it ready. If you want a bit to move from kind of a beginner in Power Query to be a bit more advanced, you can also try to make all the steps here as smaller as you can, right? Because when you have too many steps later on to make changes, you need to go through all the steps. It's sometimes the maintenance is higher. So in my case, as an example, remember in this step, when I did the rename, I remember what we did. We just double click here on attribute and value and did the rename. And this specific step created this code to us, changing from attribute column name to date and changing from value to confirm. Now, if you want to be even a bit more professional, you can go to the previous step, to the unpivot other columns, where we did the right click and did the unpivot. And here you can see in the formula bar, and I'm not asking you now to understand the syntax, but in the formula bar, you can see that we took all the columns but county and state, and then we performed the unpivot through the user interface. So what I can actually do, I can change here. So instead of attribute, which was the default name that Power Query provided, I can now use here instead date. And instead of value, I can write here confirmed. And now I actually don't need to do any rename. So the next step here that we have, let me click here, we'll have an error because attribute, right here we did the rename explicitly. So I can delete this step. And now that allowed me just to have one step less in the applied steps. Now, renaming is not really a problem in terms of performance. So it's not a big deal to reduce that. What I'm showing here is only for cosmetic purposes. And by having a lower number of steps, just making the maintenance a bit better. However, in the future, as data in your data sources is going to change, you are going to have different column names, oftentimes because everything that you do easy in the UI of Power Query, oftentimes when column names are changing or the structure is changing, the Power Query engine will just fail. It will fail because the specific columns are not there anymore. So you will have refresh errors. And if you use Power BI on the service and you apply scheduled refresh to make an enterprise-ready dashboard for all the executives in your organization to be scheduled refresh, and you don't want that schedule refresh to fail, right? So imagine next time your schedule refresh fails for a very critical mission report that you published. To be able to fix the failure, you don't want to have thousands of steps here to start troubleshooting. So having a lean and mean Power Query transformation steps are really helpful in this case. Now, as you will move in your journey to know more data wrangling in Power Query, you will oftentimes find yourself going here in the advanced editor, and here you see every step, every line that you see here in the advanced editor is actually a line in the applied steps. And every starting from, you can see source, promoted headers, removed columns. These are actually the names of the steps that we applied from the user interface. But by knowing a bit more about the syntax, you can start doing things that are much more advanced using the advanced editor. Okay, so we will not discuss that today, but this is a kind of a sneak peek into the main user interface that allows you to perform more severe manipulations of the code to do things that are much more sophisticated if needed. Okay, so this is the advanced editor. So now when we have the confirmed cases, we can load it into the report and start building analysis. Let's just try it for a second. So I click the confirmed cases. I click the close and apply on the Power Query home ribbon. And now you see that we have only four columns, four columns in the table confirmed. Now we can start building analysis, right? So just as an example, I can click here on the confirmed, and I can click here on the state, and you see that we have the data by state. I can change it into a map. Let's change it into a shape map. So now you see that New York has the highest number of confirmed cases. By the way, ignore the number. The number is not correct. We will talk about it later in the session. But you see, we can now, it's a much better structure for our table to start building the analysis. Okay, so now imagine that you'll take this report and refresh, put it on the Power BI service, set schedule refresh. We'll not do it today because it's relatively easy. We will focus on the Power BI desktop to prepare the dashboard itself. But what I wanted to share with you today is something that I found out when I did exactly these steps. So I published the report and I waited a day, and no new data came in. So this was really frustrating for me. I do think that, remember when I shared with you this AppSource, and I told you that you can just use this cool dashboard, play with it, refresh it, edit it. So right now we also have a bug on this version that is not refreshing, but it's not because of the thing that I will show you today now. So basically, when you are loading data from the COVID-19 CSV, and this is relevant for any CSV that you load data, you will find out in some cases that the CSV file is very rigid, very specific to a specific format. And when you have new columns with new information, these columns are not getting loaded into the report. So now let's fix that. And again, the problem for you, if you will just follow to this stage and tomorrow you'll do a refresh, even if you have new data, you will not find it. So let's fix it now. So I clicked again, transform data, and I'm going straight away to the first step, source. Now here, if you are not aware of the formula bar, you will not see this code, right? So you will not know that you have a problem. For advanced users, you can click on the editor to try to find the problem by yourself. Okay, let me try to see if I can increase this one just for a second. So basically, okay, you see this is the code, the first line, and something here in this code is creating a problem. Okay, I'll give you like a few seconds to think about it. Can you find here something in the code that may be challenging, that tomorrow when we load the data, we will have a problem? Okay, any ideas? Now I know that you cannot talk, so that's a limitation that we have. But let's go through the actual step here in the formula bar and show you how we can fix the problem and what's the problem. So I'm clicking here to expand the formula bar to see the code. And the problem is with this section. So we have here an explicit instruction in the formula bar telling Power Query to load the CSV file, use, for example, here a delimiter for the CSV, which is the comma, right? This is the tab delimited file. And also, unfortunately, it tells us, please split those delimited values into 103 columns only. And this is a problem because we may have more information. Okay, then so, you know, just to show you an example, if I will now try 104, probably it will not work because I suspect that in the original data, let's just check it out. In the original data, let's see, you see, we have only data. Our latest data is actually we are lucky. This is really good. Okay, so this is really good. Everything that we built now, for some reason, and I think it's because I added in the cache in the early session when I built this report. I already added in the cache. So you see here we have the data till the 29th of April, yesterday, right? But in our report, when we are using 104 columns, we have the data only till the 23rd of April. So basically, if I will do 5, I will now have another date, and 6 and 7, etc. Let's try 109. You see, I have till 28. And if I'm using here 110, I will have also the data, the latest data that we have. So in a nutshell, this column is kind of annoying because in the design that John Hopkins provided, which by the way, I really don't like the design, but you know, we cannot control it. We really want to build a dashboard based on their data. They are a very reliable company, university, and we would like to be able to get reliable sources into this report. And again, this is educational purposes. You will have many other cases where you use perhaps web-based APIs to external services that provide you some data, like stock information, financial information, CRM information. You don't control always the format of the data, and whenever you have a CSV file with lots of columns, and the design of the format was that the columns are supposed to expand, and you will have every day, every week, every month more columns. This is a problem, right? So to resolve this problem, you have different ways. The first one is you can make an assumption how many columns you're expecting to have. but to my mind, it's not a very scalable solution. I just prefer to delete this section altogether, okay? So I deleted it. Let me show you again. I just took all the section of columns equal 110 with the comma and deleted it. Okay, now you'll see that we didn't need this section altogether, and we have all the data till 29th of April, till yesterday. So now you can ask yourself, okay, so why Microsoft introduced this capability if it just creates a lot of confusion, and if we don't need this field, and Power Query is still being able to show us all the columns, why did they put this on the first place? Okay. The answer is performance. So if you are working with large data sets and your refresh time is very slow, having the explicit columns, if you know, let's say you have a format that you know that it's going to be very static. You're not going to have new columns. It makes a lot of sense to keep the explicit column number, because the time to import the entire data set is slow, and you want to make sure that your query is as efficient as you can. Without the columns, Power Query is actually loading a preview of the data to try to figure out how many columns it needs to do for the separations. Remember, we are splitting, we are loading a file from the internet, and then we are splitting it using the CSV.document, which require to explicitly provide a delimiter. And then, because we don't provide the number of columns, it will take more time for Power Query to decide how many columns it needs to provide here. So this analysis, which is done by the engine, can be avoided by explicitly providing the column numbers. In our case, because the data set is relatively small, we don't really care about it, so it makes sense to keep it as it is. Okay. So now, after we fix this issue, if I will go again to the report, now you can see that when I'm, for example, selecting here the date and the confirmed cases, okay, and now I'm drilling down in the hierarchy till the day level, and let's change this bar chart into a line chart. So now you can see that we have the data until April 29. I really hate quarters here, so let me also remove the quarter. Okay. Okay, so this is a working solution. We still have a problem that we are not addressing yet, and you can see the confirmed cases that we have in the data for US shouldn't be. You see, here you see 100 and what's the number here? 1 million. The number, even this number is incorrect, because we are counting here. I suspect that we're counting here US in different levels. So we have different levels of hierarchy, either the county or the state, and we may count some elements together, but this number is completely different than the numbers here. So just to show you, if I will create now a card, and I will bring the confirmed cases to the card, you see that we have 20 million confirmed cases in US, which is incorrect. And the reason is because the data that we have, all this data represent a cumulative number. So even if, for example, in New York, we should expect to see some decline, you see this is the cumulative number, and this is why the 6 millions are not matching, because what we do here, we are just summing up all the numbers together. So this is not a correct way to provide this number. We will move in the next phase of our tutorial how we are going to fix that as well. Okay, now let me pause here and see if we have any questions before we move to the next challenge, which is to bring the death cases. Okay, let's see if we have any questions. Okay. Tommy?
Yes. Excuse me. Yes, I'm here. What'd you say? I'm really sorry. It cut out on me.
Yeah, sure. Did you get any questions that you want to?
Yeah. So basically, with some of the QA things we wanted to take a look at, one of the things that Alex Powers asked is, what is the maximum number of columns that Power Query supports?
That is a very good question. It's a lot. Actually, I wrote about it. Let me just search something. So I wrote an article that I called the Power Query Transpose Bomb. So typically when you do data wrangling in cases where you have many rows, but you need to do some logic that will require you require to do transpose. If you have too many rows, this leads to a memory consumption problems, and sometimes even failing to perform the operation just because you reach the limit. And I think that I included here the specific limitation. Okay, so this is the error that I received. The total number of columns in the model is 397, which exceeds the limit of 600,000. So this is your limit. Okay, we can also take a look on the internet to see, probably here. So this is the official one, and this is the limit. 16,384. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. So we have another question from Alex, and this is a really good one. I've noticed a lot of people have chosen the data with the horizontal layout as opposed to the daily files they showed. Is there a reason why you chose one over the other?
Not sure I follow. Let me. What do you mean the horizontal layout?
We'll see if Alex can ask that question. So
horizontal layout as opposed to the daily files. I understand. Okay, yeah, that's a good question. That's actually a good question. So so the question is, here in the John Hopkins dataset, many people in the community built their own Power BI report based on this dataset, and you have here several options to choose from. So here you see you have daily reports US, and you can also load the data daily from these sources. Okay, so here the data here is a bit more structured better, right? You don't have the horizontal situation of every day, right? And by the way, we may have here also, let's see, yeah, we have here recovered, we have active, and also a new one people tested that I completely ignored. So first of all, Alex, thank you so much for the question, because I'm definitely going to, I would want to use people tested as part of the dashboard in one of the next iterations. But for me, in early versions of these files, I didn't have anything new to add to the reports, and I really didn't like the idea. For me, let's go back here in the data. So when you see when we have all these files, now I would need to implement a logic that will allow me now to iterate and load each one of these files. So in terms of performance, it doesn't make sense in my mind to build the logic that will know. It's possible, right? Everything is possible with Power Query. Everything deterministic is possible in Power Query. So loading this kind of like a folder and then use it didn't make sense to me in terms of performance and all the hassle around it. But now I have a good idea for. You gave me a motivation to do that just for the sake of getting the actual test cases, number of test cases. So in the time series, as you can see, we don't have the test cases, so it's worth the attempt in our case. Okay, any other questions?
One thing I wanted to at least highlight with a lot of the questions that came in, a lot of people said they don't know Power Query or M very well, or they feel that they're basically a very beginner side when it comes to Power Query. Could you recommend some good sources for users just to begin to learn or understand Power Query?
Yes, absolutely. So let me we'll do it quickly here. So starting point for Power Query and M, I think, and I really recommend, don't try too hard to push yourself to learn M. If you are not very passionate about learning new languages, programming languages, it's fine that you will just know that M exists and be able in some cases to do lightweight changes of the expression. Okay, so I really recommend for Power Query, you have Chris Webb has a great blog about everything which is more to these days Power BI in general, but lots of Power Query capabilities, lots of M. You have also you have Ken Pulse as well, and Miguel Escobar Power Query. So the Excel Guru blog, fantastic resource for Power Query. Oftentimes it's more intended for Excel users, but Power Query in Power BI is the same engine that you have in Excel. And the good thing about it, I really recommend that you will get a bit more about these capabilities, because if you are familiar with the relatively new data flows in Power BI, to be able to do strong data flows, you need to at least appreciate the language that is created, and then using the Power Query editor, going to advanced editor oftentimes, and moving the code from Power Query in Power BI desktop into the data flow in Power BI will help you to implement very sophisticated transformations that if you would start from scratch in Power BI data flows, it will take you much more time to develop. So Chris Webb and Ken Pulse are really great. You have also Miguel Escobar Power Query. So Powered Solutions, he has fantastic articles about Power Query that I really recommend reading. You have also Matt Allington, Power BI, great articles also across the board in Power BI, but he has great articles also about Power Query as well. And you have also many more that worth mentioning here as well, if I will just take a pause. And so one of the great blog posts that you have as well is, let me just, even if when you go Power Query blog and go through the relevant items here, just to give you some examples for great ones. So you have Eric Swenson, great resource, SQL Chick. And the one that I wanted to mention in specific is the BI content by Imke Feldman. This is a really great segue for doing things in M in a professional way. I really recommend that you will check also the BI content as well. Now moving to books, what I can say about books. So really, if you will just go, basically in terms of Power Query, fortunately, at this stage at least, the latest book is mine. So just search for Power Query, and you can find, after you go through the sponsored links, you can find the top 2 books on Power Query is Collect, Combine, and Transform Data Using Power Query. This is my book. You're welcome to use it. I published it just a year ago. It is still very relevant. There is only one chapter that you can skip, which is the Facebook connector, but you have here 70 exercises that you can go through, and they will help you to be able to solve probably any business challenge that you have with your data, to transform the data 30 times faster than any data wrangler that you have in your IT team in your company. The original book that you had in Power Query that is also really great, but was released only I think in 2014, is by Ken Pools and Miguel Escobars, 2 of my fellow MVPs. So you are welcome also to use this book as well. And there is another book for Power Query that Chris Webb released also many years ago that you can consider as well. I know that there is some discussions to have a new revision for this book and also for Ken's and Miguel Escobar book. I think, yeah, so that's pretty much sum up the journey. And one last thing that I wanted to share with you in terms of rationalizing why to move from just knowing the user interface of Power Query to understand when it's time for you to learn a bit more about M, just a little bit. You know, I'm not asking you to be top expert in M, because you will just need it to solve around 15% of your challenges, but to be able really to be a super data wrangler in your company, if you will just search in Google for data chant pitfalls. So I published an article, a series of articles about the Power Query pitfalls. You have here 10 different pitfalls that are showing you how, when you build Power queries, when things are getting a bit unexpected and you have new column names or the format is different, there are very common mistakes that you do by just following the user interface. So follow these 10 pitfalls, start with pitfall number 1 and move straight ahead slowly to pitfall number 10. This will bring you great motivations when to start learning how to do lightweight touches on the formula bar to make your queries much more robust to support surprises down the road. Okay. Let me also share this link here to make things easier on you. So these are the pitfalls that you can try. Okay, shall we continue? So I saw a question about which map we are using. So in this case, I clicked here on the shape map. Okay, let's move to the next phase. Okay. So now we are going to move relatively quickly. We would like now to bring the data also for the dev cases. Okay, so I'm going back to my browser to COVID-19. And we have here the US death cases. This is the time series. Okay, and I'm clicking again on the row button to copy the link in the address bar. And now I'm going back to my report to bring the death cases. So now for me to do that, I'm going here to right click on the confirmed cases and select duplicate. So I have now another query. It is doing exactly the same as the previous query. You see, if I will now click close and apply, I will have a new table in the report called confirmed to. I'm going to change this one to death. And I'm going now to go through the steps here to change this logic into the death cases. So there are two ways to do that. If you are very advanced, you can click on the advanced editor. And here in the code, without knowing the syntax even, you can find the URL, right? And I can paste it. So this is the new CSV that we just copy from GitHub. You can already see I don't have the number of columns here because we fixed it in the original query, and this will work for us. And because if you are also an advanced developer, if you remember in the time where we did the renaming, we applied when we did on pivot, we used the term confirmed. So I can now even change this one to death here, and I see confirm here as well. And that's it. I can click done, and I have everything almost ready. You see that I have here some error. So let's just try to test why we have this error. So I will go till we have this step. And this is, you see, an anomaly where, in terms of the data, we have American Samoa population, which is an interesting thing. Let's try to see in the confirmed cases if we had the same issue. Okay, you see, based on the green bar here, we don't have any errors when we converted this column to date. If we would have the population value, we would see an error. So this is probably a typical data quality issue that John Hopkins provided, which is great because we have an opportunity to learn. In our case, let's just go and examine it. So you see here in this case, this is really interesting. What happened here is that actually this is not a data quality issue. John Hopkins, if you are hearing this, I apologize. This is just a kind of a data contract and a wrong assumptions issue. In our case, when we did the copy paste in the previous data set, we applied unpivot. You see here we applied unpivot just to the country and the state. However, this very unique CSV file also have the population. We didn't have the population earlier, but we have it now, meaning that the unpivot, this unpivot, is telling Power Query, look, this is just another date, because when we did the unpivot, it's like we did it this way. We selected only county and state, and we told Power Query everything else is of the same semantics, the same type of entity, and this is wrong. So what I actually need to do is fix this query, either by deleting all the steps and do everything from scratch, or if I want to be a bit more advanced, I can see here that I have in the steps, this is the rename, right? And I can click here on the unpivot other columns, and now I can add here the population, and by doing that, now you can see that I'm doing the unpivot only on the other columns, and I'm including the population on the columns that I don't want to unpivot. So now changing the type of date will work, and we don't have any errors and population in this column. Make sense? Of course, what you can also do instead of what I have done now, you could repeat all the steps from scratch to follow these scenarios. Now, for very advanced users, like here is another reason why you may want to learn M. Imagine that we would have 10 different data sets with the same format, but each time you will have different attributes as values, right? Here we have confirmed and death. Imagine that you will have also the number of tests and the number of false alarms and the number of many different things. So Power Query allows you to create functions that will allow you to do these operations in a single effort instead of redoing it manually every time. I don't think that it's worth now going through that because we have at least 50% of our audience today is basic in Power Query. But just to let you know, in a nutshell, the way to do that is to see in confirmed cases, we can open the advanced editor and we can remember that actually the things that are different across the different data sources is the URL and also the name of the column, which is confirmed. So in our case, also the unpivot included also population, which is different. But now you can use M to create a function that will receive the actual CSV file and the name of the values, and you can use that writing functions to be able to do what you want. But we will skip this one for now. So we have confirmed and we have that. Okay, you see with the population right now. The population is really important, but it doesn't make sense as a repetitive number in this data set. So to work in a better way in terms of the model, we are going to do several things. The first thing that we are going to do is to change the population into whole number, right? This is easy. The second thing that we are going to do is that we are going now to call the death cases base query death. I'm calling it base query just because I know I don't want to use this query beyond just an intermediate step for what I'm going to do now. Now I'm going to create a reference of this query. You see, reference creates the same table, but this time on the third, the new query that we just created using a reference by right-clicking, the steps that we have is only one step. Let me just refresh to show you. So you see the first step, only a single step. It is starting with the output of the base query depth table. Okay, so this is a way to start building a pipeline with multiple queries that will allow you to do more and more sophisticated things and keep things in a kind of a more segmented different queries to allow you to better troubleshoot. But in our case, what I would like actually to do is I would like to create two tables from the base query. So I'm going now to right click again and create reference again. Now what I would like to do is to change the third query and call this one, let's call it population. US population. Okay, and the new query is going to be called depth. So just to show you, I can go in the View tab and click Query Dependencies, and you can now see because of the references that we created, we are starting with GitHub. We are loading the base query depth. We are splitting it into two tables, depth and US population. We also have the confirmed cases here. Now what we are going to do is we are going to remove the population from the death table. We don't need it here anymore. We really want to keep confirmed and death with the same format. Okay, and now in the US population, what we are going to do is we are going to understand that actually what we would like in the population, because you see repetitive number, most likely what we would like to do is to select the county and the state. I'm making an assumption, a very logical assumption, that the population is not going to change across the different dates, right? This is some data that is not that is slowly updating, not like the data that we have for death cases. So this data is not going to change over time in this report, and so this is why I would like to keep only the population per the combination of state and county. So by selecting these two columns, I can now right-click and select remove duplicates. And now you see we are starting to have the population information very meaningful with different numbers per the combination of state and county. Okay, we can ignore now the last two columns. We don't need them in the US population data. And this information now will help us to have a table in our report with the US population in a way that will allow us to build the analysis, to start analyzing our data. The next step that we are going to do is to take the confirmed and death tables and merge them into a single table, because we have the same county, state, and date. It will just make better sense instead of having separate tables and then building relationship between them, because these tables share the same keys and have the same granularity and grain level. It's better to merge them together in my mind. So what I'm going now to do, I'm selecting confirmed. In the home tab, I'm going to click merge queries as new. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to merge between confirmed cases and the death cases. And I'm going to tell Power Query the county, the state, and the date. I'm using control key here. Again, let me just undo all this so I will explain what I'm doing. I'm using the control key to click on the header of county, then on the header of state, and then on the header of date. By doing that, I'm telling Power Query to use the combination of these values as the matching key in the merge with the death table. And now I'm going to repeat the same in the death table, selecting with control key on the header of county, state, and death and date. Okay, as a good way to show that we are doing the right thing, you can see that Power Query tells us the selection matches all the rows. We have the exact number here, so we are good to go. There is way more capabilities in this merge functionality. You can use that for many interesting scenarios, like checking that you have the same rows within the two tables. The join kind give you very interesting opportunities to do validations on data. For example, if you want to see rows that you have only on the second table that are missing on the first table, you can use the right anti to find those columns, and vice versa. If you just want to see items on the first table that you don't have in the second table, you can use the left anti. So merge is a very great tool for data validation as well. You have here a fuzzy matching option that is really cool, not recommended for enterprise reports that you are refreshing constantly, but for ad hoc analysis and exploration, this is a really cool feature, allowing you to match between values even if they are not exactly matching. Okay, but for now, let's just click on the OK button. And now we have the death cases here as separate tables. When I click on the canvas here of each one of the cells, you can see that we have the specific matching row from the second table. So all we need to do now is click on the expand button and select only the death column to expand from the other table. If you are a SQL developer, you know you do it every day using joins in SQL. And to some extent, if you are a Power Excel user, you do it every day with VLOOKUPs. In Power Query, the merge option that is available again in the merge queries in the home ribbon here is the way to combine multiple tables together, like using join in SQL and VLOOKUPs in Excel. So now when we have this column, we can actually rename it def. Let me do it from the formula bar. Okay. And we are ready to go to the next step. So now you see we have here merge one. I can call this one, let's call this one US cases. So we have a table US cases, we have a table US population. If I will click close and apply, you will find in the table in the report on the table section the confirmed and death as well, and we don't want that, right? Let me just click here to show you the experience, because if you are relatively new to Power Query, this is definitely something that you would like to know, but I want to show you that first in a very vivid way. So what you can see now here, when we load everything, we use our base query and the confirmed and death cases as tables in the report, but we don't really need them because we have everything that we need in US cases, right? We have the confirmed cases and the death cases, and we have the US population. So these three tables are not needed in the report. If you work with Power BI and you also find tables that are not needed, it's really a good opportunity to remove them, right? Because you are consuming too much memory, the refresh is slower, and most importantly, users that develop visualization can just be confused by the too many options that they have across the tables. So while now for reducing the confusion, you have the option in Power BI just to right click and hide the table. Just to show you, I right click and hide the table. And now if I will publish this report to the service on the browser, on the service, nobody will see those other tables. But still the report is very slow and it doesn't make sense to do it this way, right? So let's just show you the hidden tables. We still want to somehow take these tables out of the report. So back to the drawing board, we click the transform data. And this is a very useful technique that many are missing. I'm selecting the base query, depth, right click, and unchecking the enable load. Clicking continue. Again, the warning here is telling us if I already built in Power BI some visualizations against the confirmed table, this visualization will now return errors. Because we didn't build anything significant, I feel very comfortable in doing that. In your case, of course, don't start doing that if you're not sure how it's going to affect your report. But you see now all these three tables are in italics, and the US population and US cases are just with normal fonts. And I can go to the View tab also and check the query dependencies. And now you can see, let's just expand it. Now you can see that load disabled, confirmed table is load disabled, death query is load disabled, US population is loaded, US cases is loaded. So this way we started using reference in the Power Query editor to duplicate some steps to build a pipeline of transformations that will help us also later on to maintain the solution, and also to be able to split between the same data into two, because we really need those two elements with different levels of gains and different columns. So this way we did it, and to do it in the right way, it's also important to disable the load. So now we have everything ready, and we are ready in our last 10 minutes to the last section, which is more about the analysis itself. Let's just remove all these visuals and start from scratch. So we have the US cases now here on the right and the US population. We are now saying goodbye to Power Query, moving to DAX. Now I know some of you expected to have here perhaps cool visualization and to see techniques about how to do some very crazy things in visualization, and we didn't do it so far. But I think in my opinion, visualization is relatively easier to learn. It's more of, in a lot of trial and error, you can become a real expert very quickly. But with Power Query, if you will just try it by yourself, you can stumble upon lots of dead ends down the road. So I really recommend. I see so many people that have zero knowledge about what they can do with Power Query. So I think I feel very comfortable in disappointing you a bit with all the visualization and giving you a more focus on the most important things here, which is bringing the data and making the initial analysis. If you want to see to focus more about the visualization, this is going to be relatively very easy for you, because if you will go to AppSource to my app and click Get It Now and install it on your Power BI, what you are going to see, let me just show you very quickly. So I'm here going to my Power BI. Let's sign in very quickly. So here on the workspaces, you're going to see after you install the app, you will have two workspaces, one for the developers and another one which is the actual app. So where is my app here? I didn't have it for some reason. So basically, you know what, let me show you the entire experience. No, we don't have time, sorry. So just let's create here an app, not from here, from the, after you install the workspace, you will actually have an app, and the app will look like that. So this is now you can share this report with your colleagues. Anybody who learns Power BI, if you want to promote Power BI within your organization, right? To say, here are the things that Power BI can do. You can share it within your organization. There you have here kinds of like cool tooltips. Like this is the custom tooltip, so you can learn, you can edit it and see how I implemented it. And then you can go back to your workspace, the workspace that you install. So this workspace is the workspace that you can install free from the AppSource. And here, if you will go to the report, you can actually now click here on the edit, and everything that you see here that I built in terms of visualization, you can just explore it by yourself. You have it and you can edit it and you can add more pages. And for example, here, when you see that I have a tooltip, this specific tooltip here is actually, you know, I can click here on the visual and go here on the format. And you can see here in the tooltips that I actually used a report page tooltip. If you don't know this technique, Google Power BI report page tooltip to learn how to do that. So you can see here, I assigned the tooltip global, which is actually a page, tooltip global. So this is a page that I created and designed like any other Power BI report page. And I used this one to generate the tooltip. Okay, so if you are not familiar with tooltips that are customized, this is the way to go. You have it, you can play with it, you can edit it, you can do reverse engineering, and you're welcome to ask me questions on my blog in comments, and I will try to answer. So I'm now moving away altogether from the visualizations, just for those of you who perhaps expected to have very cool things in visualization. And it's not because, again, not because visualization are not very important in Power BI, but because I think, and I see it with many, many users of Power BI and clients that I work with, and also colleagues sometimes, many people are not aware of the Power BI full stack capabilities, and they treat Power BI like Tableau, click, visualization, data visualization tool. But Power BI, as you saw in this exercise today, it's not just a visualization tool. It's even completely not a visualization tool. It allows you to become magicians in your organization and perform full BI solutions without relying on other teams, and to deliver BI enterprise-ready solutions using Power BI as a platform, not just as a placeholder for cool interactive reports and dashboards, as a full platform using the analysis services in Power BI Premium and many other capabilities like data flows to do things 30 times faster than any other BI team using any other technology. So this is really an amazing technology, and this is why if you are in the business of doing Power BI for your company, investing in Power Query, investing in modeling will allow you to do way, way more than just the cool visualization. So now back to our last challenges that we have. You can see here we have the US cases and the US population, and we actually want to be able to build some analysis on top of it. So actually, the first thing that we would need to do is to perhaps create a unique key between those entities, because the population and use cases are not the same. So I'm going to do it relatively quickly. So let's do it in Power Query. You can use DAX to create calculated columns that will do the same. If you participated in dashboarding and day events, you're probably familiar with it. So, I can go here in let's select the table, for example, and I can go select here a new column and call this column key. Let's call this geo key. And now I can say here to provide me the country. Just a second. So we have the table which is called US cases and county, and perhaps using some delimiter just for being user friendly. Now I can also use the US cases state. Now you see I have a calculated column for the geolocation. I can do the same on the other table, and I can do, instead of a calculated column, I can go to Power Query and do it there. Let's do it's not very good to do it on both on the same solution. You better decide whether you do your calculated columns or do it in Power Query. I typically prefer to do it in Power Query, not as calculated columns. And we can talk about it for 10 minutes, so I will not do it for now. But let me just show you how we do that now with the US population. So I can go now and select county and state, right click, and actually merge column will just turn it into, it will not work this way. So let's do it in the advanced way. So I go to the add column, and I'm creating now, let's try something interesting. So I'm selecting a column from example, from selection. This may not work, but I'm just curious to test. You see here I have Baldwin and Alabama. So I'm going to type here Baldwin and Alabama. Okay, you see what happened? By just using an example, Power Query knew by itself that this is what I would like to do. So instead of knowing DAX, as we did earlier, to concatenate between two values, we just used a column from example and filled only one answer, one example, and allowed Power Query now to figure out by itself what we are looking to achieve. Now let's call this one geo key and click OK. And now we have the county and state. Probably, I'm not sure if I used the right order on the calculated column on the use cases. Let's just check it out. So here we use two techniques for the columns, and let's check the geolocation, the geo key here. Yeah, it was also county and then state. So these are exactly the same, I think. Yeah, let's check US population. We may have spaces here. Yeah, you see here we have spaces. So let's fix it because we need matching keys. So under the US cases in the geo key, I'm going to use also the space and space here. And now when I will go to the relationship and I will drag and drop geo key from one table to another, you can see we are creating the relationship necessary to bridge between the different values. Okay, so now back to our report. We will go to the next level. Now the next level is, again, as you saw earlier, if I will click confirm cases, you see that we have 20 million, almost 20 million cases, which is not the actual case, right? If you will get the date here, you will see that basically we have accumulated data. To fix the accumulated data, we would like to create a better situation for us that will actually give us for every column the actual dates, the actual the new cases. Okay, so to implement the new cases, we are going to do that in two phases. The first phase is going to be we are going to create a table for all the dates. We don't really want to use dates in our fact tables. We want to have a separate table for calendar. Now we don't have enough time now to discuss why, but let's just do it very, very quickly because I see that we have only 3 minutes. So here you see I'm creating here calendar, and I'm going to explicitly, I'm using the calendar function, I'm going to say I would like to use the minimal, the first date from, where is this one? So our US cases date is going to be our first day, and then I would like to use the last day, which is the date in US. Okay, so max, min, and max. And now you will see that we have a new table, which is calendar table, and we can now bring the date here. And now we have a star schema for the population and the calendar. We can hide the date from the US cases because we don't need it. It's also a good practice to never use the confirmed and instead use here another measure that will actually do the confirmed cases. But now again, because of the accumulated information that we have, we actually need to use another formula. Let's call it, so for now, the actual, let's call it confirmed cases should actually be, in our case, to really know what we have here, we need to avoid having all the previous dates. We just need for every date to be able to tell what was the previous date in order to answer what we have on the specific date. So to do that, and this is where I don't have enough time, I recommend, and I'm sorry, I see I'm always challenging myself to provide all the information that I wanted in advance, and I failed to do that. So apologies for that, but let me just show it you the link to give you the next steps of this tutorial, which is here. So this is the link. Let me just paste it here for you. And this tutorial will take you through the steps. Here you see, for example, the cumulative amounts is wrong. Here I had 10 millions. Today we have 20 millions. So this tutorial explains how to apply DAX to use to calculate total confirmed using a bit more advanced calculations that iterate over each one of the different locations. Like in this case, it's the country and the states, but you can do the same on your data. And then based on this calculation, to have the daily number of confirmed cases, here you see we created the calendar table, and then you have here the DAX, the actual DAX that you would need to calculate using time intelligence and date add function to get the actual daily confirmed cases and to move from cumulative numbers into daily numbers. Okay, so that was it. 1 minute late, sorry guys. And thank you for the session today. Bobby, if you have any final farewells.
So thank you guys so much. There might be a little feedback. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We really hope you got a lot out of it. Quick couple of follow-ups. A lot of people are asking about the recording and some of the files. The recording will be available. It will be published on YouTube, and the link to the video along with any other resources will be sent the normal way we communicate, and that's through meetup.com emails. The normal way we send out the announcements, and we'll send out a link there. We are planning to have a meetup at the end of May. As always, and I'll say it every meetup, this is a user group for you, and we want to make it worth your while. You guys are learning about work on a work week, after work, to learn for work. So we really want to make sure that this is engaging for you, and it's also something that you provide value. So please provide feedback. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will see you next month. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Gil, and thanks to Gil. Thank you so much, Gil, for doing this. It was absolutely phenomenal. Is one of my favorite presenters. So thank you so much, Gil.
Thank you, Tommy. See you
All right,
soon.
guys. Have a good one.